Introduction to SQL or SQL. My name is Arti and I'm from Nextlighter. I'll take you through introduction in SQL. This will teach you about the basics of SQL. Um, I've made this for free so that you can get as much as possible, and I want to share my skill that I have to better someone else. So let's go to the slide. So what we'll be going through here is an intro. I'll then introduce myself and just what I do briefly. And we discuss what is SQL, why should we use SQL, and what we'll learn on SQL. What can we do with SQL? And then we go for an illustration, things that we talked about. So we might not go through all of the things today, but I'll take you bits and bytes I'll take you through the bits and bytes on this. And I want to make it as short as possible so that you can be able to grasp. So a quick introduction for me. My name is Arti. Working right now as a data scientist slash statistician. So in the data field, I mean, there's a lot of designation, but more than anything, if you're working as a data science, you can be working as a data analyst as well, or a statistician. So I have more than 10 years experience working in the data analytics space. So I'm quite knowledgeable about some tools. I don't know everything, but I'll share the bit that I know. First, what is SQL? So SQL is a standard language for accessing, manipulating databases. So this is just a language that was designed to be able to communicate with databases to enable us to be able to put data in the database and communicate back with the data. So what SQL means or stands for is Standard Query Language. Sorry. So let's go back. So SQL stands, what am I saying? Standard Query Language. Sorry, it's Structured Query Language. Um, I think I'm mistaking it because I mean SQL is always a standard language. It doesn't change wherever you go in the world. Why SQL? SQL was developed, just a bit of history on this. It was developed in the 1970s, and this was done by researchers from IBM. One of them was Raymond Boyce and Donald Chamberlain. So it was called then SQL. Then it all evolved over time, and now it's called SQL, which is a structured query language. The nicest thing and the interesting thing about SQL, it's simple to learn. It is not coding or programming bound or specific. It is just a standard language. So meaning if you retrieve, you retrieve it the same. If you select, you select it the same. If you build a database, you build the same. Wherever you are in the world, because with coding, with programming, there's a lot of ways you can represent your code, but you're still saying the same thing in 5 different ways. But with SQL, it is not like that. So moving on, what you will learn to do in SQL, you will learn to create a database, create new tables. You'll learn to retrieve data from the database and or insert records. You can also update records, delete records, create stored procedures, and create views. But for the purposes of today, we are only going to focus on the ones in the yellow. Create Okay, we are in SQL. Let's create a database where, so already you've got something like this, or what is called um, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. In some other videos, I will show you how to install this in your computer and how you set up your instance. So this is a database. It comes like this with all these options when you are done. So to create a new database, you go to databases and create a new database, and it's gonna open up, let's say, a new um, uh, database, and here it just shows a logical name that were written there, new database. Here is an initial size, so I think this is a bit much for the rows. But let's take it down to, let's say, 1 MB, 1 MB per size, right? I mean per row. So this shows you row. This is a standard procedure for SQL because they want to have a primary key. I'll tell you later about primary keys, but they are unique identifiers to identify rows in SQL. Then this is just going to be a log file on what happened when you want to later retrieve what happened with SQL. Maybe you want to check on the logs, where is the problem coming from, where's the errors and stuff. So SQL just is a standard. Press OK, the database appears there. Then from there on, you can be able to create a table, because what SQL works is they create first a container, which is a database. Then the database contains tables. Then those tables then contain the data inside there. So we can just go jump on that database. On the database, let's drag, pull, drag things down. So when you drag things down here, you see clearly that there's tables, there's views, there's programmability, there's storage, there's security. But for the purposes of basic, basic SQL, and these are the things that you really need to really need to know to get started with SQL. How to create a table in SQL. So on those tables, you can just go drag down. It's not going to show you any table because we don't have any table. But if you want to create a table, you can say right click, new, and it's going to say create a table. Quickly, it creates your table. For example, for the purposes of this, let's just create a table that says name. And notice when I'm clicking enter, it allocates data type and char. So it means it's going to be 10 characters. The name is going to be 10 characters. You can change to nvarchar and show the characters that will when you want more characters. You can change this and say nvarchar maybe 15 and say surname and so this just shows characters. So nvarchar is non-restrictive character, right? So nvar character, so would be, let's say 15, and let's say phone number. So phone number, usually it's a number, right? So go to the drag down menu, and from phone number you track down and look for something that will resemble a number, which is an integer. So number can be an integer or a real number, but let's use int for the purposes of this. And we can add addresses and other attributes, right? So when it's not a number, it should be character. So that's why we have n varchar here. And the phone number, it's integer, or maybe a real number, or let's say if it was money, we would say we're gonna say money, right? If we have an attribute for money. Okay, so for the purposes of this, let's do it like that. So okay, let's go back again. Um, Back again, I also added the address, which has 50 characters. Um, so if we enter maybe something, these things that says n varchar 15 int n varchar 50, if it happens, then you enter characters that are above 50. Then the system is going to complain and it's not going to take that. For example, if the name um, exceeds 50 characters, the system will not take that. Okay, let's go again. Let's go ahead and create this table. So you right click on top of this where there's a yellow area, right click and you say save table. It's going to pop up this window and says, what do you want to call my table? So let's say custom, and now it has already changed the customer, right? So you see right now we have done creating a table because it says DBO custom. So you can just close this window, um, but you can click refresh and go back to databases, database, tables, and you will see our customer table there. Say select those. Um, so it shows the stuff that we put there: name, surname, number, address to this location. You'll notice we have not put anything in the database. So this is how the first one you retrieve your data in the database. Let me switch off again, go back. When that table is there, you right click again, you say select top 1000 rows. But when we select top 1000 rows, we find that there's nothing because we have not entered any data. So our next step is to enter something in the database. So when we want to insert stuff in our database, we're going to erase all of this and we type insert into, then we click and drag our table where we want to insert stuff to. Then now we need to describe the stuff that we need to insert into. So we call it values. So then we're gonna have to describe the values that we set. Sorry, how close should the back? Yeah. So this is used to close any SQL statement. The semicolon is used to close any SQL statement. So then we'll go ahead and run this and see what happens. Okay, let's quickly run this. To run any query that you did, go to execute, and it says query completed with errors. Okay, let's check the error. It says incorrect syntax near library, which is the zoo. So you need to define if, for example, here we saying zoo libraries my address and there's a space. Once there's a space between them, SQL says, oh, I don't understand. So to show that it's in one line, or I should put it in one line, we put a quote Let's put quotes. Okay, let's go back and check for each and every one, right? So if each and every character, because we said these ones are characters, this one is a number. So a number, we don't have to put double quotes on that, because if we can put double quotes here, it's going to complain unclosed quotation mark after character string, right? So let's put a string, um, that, and say execute. It says one row affected, it's going to insert. And if I do that again, it's going to insert again the same row. So I've done this, I think, about 3 or 4 times. So when that is done, let's go check our table. How does it select top rows? There are our rows. Our team Rasi, that's the number. So remember, in our database, we then um, um, have the information that is then um, so remember, then we have this sort of information that we have put, that we set. Um, so I think our objective for today, we have got our objective. We did create a database. We did create a table. We did try to retrieve data from the database. And so there was nothing after the table is created. And then later, then we inserted the data in the database, and then we're able to retrieve with the data again once we have entered something.